Well, welcome to the Compass TV show. It's been just a wonderful past month, and now we're back again upon the holiday season. And my special guest today is Heather Rackey, and we're going to start our conversation today around the Aging Cafe. The Aging Cafe is something that we held about a week ago from the time of this taping, and the Aging Cafe model and concept is that we give people permission to talk about aging. I've also done a death cafe, and that was simply giving people permission to talk about death. There is no agenda, and there's just basically the conversation that happens. So with that, Heather was a first-time attendee at that Aging Cafe. So Heather works with me, as most of you who are probably watching know. But Heather, what was your first impression with the Aging Cafe?
The first thing that stood out to me at the Aging Cafe was how we started out the conversation. You asked a simple question of why did we come to the Aging Cafe. We all had such different answers of why we had come, and I think we each had our own expectations of what the evening might entail.
Right.
But really it was quite the learning adventure.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that was really interesting there that typically we do a group of 10 to 12 is like the prime number, but you can go up to 20. So we had 16 in attendance. We had people of all different ages, I would say from right around 30 something, I don't know the exact age there, 30 something all the way up into the about 80. So we had a wide range. We had professionals, we had young families, we had retired citizens from the community, and we also had some people from a couple of different cultures. And I just thought that as we had that conversation, the discussion, where it went and then where it went to and then where it came back to, was an interesting journey.
Yes, it definitely was. I guess I had gone into it thinking that we would really get to the roots of this aging concept. There's
Right.
some people that absolutely hate talking about aging, and other people that are a little bit different, like the two of us.
Us.
We love talking about aging. But what stood out to me, within the first half an hour of conversation was that the aging concept quickly turned into death. And I remember I was the one that kind of tried to turn that conversation back around.
Yes.
Just because we're aging doesn't mean that we're dying.
Right.
So yeah, that was real interesting how it took that twist. I didn't think it would go that route.
Yeah, and I think I was a little surprised too, but that's the beauty of just opening with the question and seeing what's on people's minds. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was rather enlightening, but I think you and I already knew it, that as soon as people think of aging, the common thing is to think, oh, they're near death.
Yes. Yeah.
And individual that participated made a very interesting remark to me. That individual said that we're all aging, and we start aging from the minute we're born till the time we leave the earth. And the aging doesn't matter, but it's the process in between that matters.
Right. Yeah. I really enjoyed that comment too that person made.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many moments within that time span from birth to death, and how we fill our time and our passions and what we're involved in. That's really the whole aging process,
Right.
Yeah.
It's I guess pretty common known to you and I. It's kind of like that poem, the Dash poem. It's what you do in between that birth and death that makes the impact. And that is really the aging process, or as I see it, the living process.
Right. Yeah.
So that's very interesting. The other thing that really struck me too is that one of our retired people there hated, I shouldn't say hated, that's a strong word, really did not like the
strongly
word.
disliked.
Yeah, the word aging, and that kind of surprised me in essence, because she's a very
she's-
vibrant person. So
Yes, that really surprised me with that individual too, because when I look at her, I think she does aging really well. You know,
Right.
she's still very actively involved in the community. She's involved with volunteer work. Oftentimes, when I ask her about coming to some activities, she has to take a couple days and check her planner, because her planner's so busy
Yeah.
that she needs to see if she has room to attend to the events.
Right.
And she just seems very vibrant, and I was really surprised with that too.
right, yeah, I thought that was a real enlightening moment. I think the other thing that was really enlightening for me too was with the different cultures that we had there. We had a conversation with them as to what is aging like in your culture, and they shared, and I was shocked.
Yeah, I was shocked too. You know, one of the reasons I wanted to be a part of the Aging Cafe is with my position, I am supposed to be programming things for seniors. So one of the things that I've been trying to figure out is, how do I get different cultures to come down to the center, or
Right.
what type of activities can draw multi-cultures into the center. What's their desire as far as
Right.
when they age. And when we started to really dig into it, it seemed like there was a real pattern that underlined across cultures.
Right.
You know, there's certainly people that we know that, like that lady that we were just talking about, that age very well, and they're very vibrant and very involved in the community. They may have health issues, but it doesn't really limit them at this standpoint.
Right.
And then we can probably also think of individuals in our own personal life that
Yeah.
are sitting at home in front of the TV and depressed and down, and really not
Yeah.
wanting to get out of the house, and family wonders, how do we motivate that person to
Right.
become more involved?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we came to the conclusion, and it was fun seeing the people's reactions around the table, that it doesn't matter where you're born or where you leave this earth. Aging process is the same for all of us, no matter where.
Right.
It's truly the same, and I thought that was really enlightening, that
It
I think
was.
sometimes we presume that a different culture perhaps has a different way of handling it, but they were dealing with the same issues, the very, very same issues.
Right, and the different cultures also came back to aging associated with death
Yes.
in the conversation, you know.
Yes.
So that just kind of further shows that there is,
Yes,
unity
yes.
among that.
I know another thing that we kind of touched on is we touched on real briefly, and our conversation was coming to an end when we started tapping this, but it was, and this is a question that I think everybody should ask at their holiday tables when they gather with family and friends, is, at what age are you old and why? And I think that's very interesting question.
That is an interesting question. I attended an aging type cafe up in the Twin Cities metro area.
Yep.
Oh, maybe 6 months ago, I think
Yep.
it was. And I was surrounded by much more experienced people than myself, with lots of wisdom.
Yep.
I was probably one of the youngest participants in the Aging Cafe up there.
Right.
And I was quite surprised, because we were asked that question at that event. And my number was a lot older than, you know, some of the more aged people that
Right.
attended that
Yeah.
event. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly how we each come up with that number, but
Right.
what's your number, Barb?
My number has typically been 97.
Yep,
And yours, Heather?
is 107.
So we're 10 years apart. But we kind of come down to the same conclusion.
Right.
So you want to expand on that, Heather?
Sure. So the reason I came up with the number 107 was prior to working for the city of Marshall, I worked in the nursing home setting.
Right.
And I worked with a lot of individuals that were near the end of their life. Primarily, I would say between the age of 75 to 92, 98.
Yeah.
But even though they were in the nursing home, they had aged well,
Right.
you know. And then when I made the transition into working in this current role, I started meeting individuals that were in that same age range, but also expanded out a bit. So I was starting to meet some people that were like 100, 101, 102, and
Yeah.
these were individuals that were still living in their home.
Right.
You know, we had one particular lady that would, how old was she?
104.
Is that the one that came for exercise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, that one was just about 100.
Just about 100.
Yeah.
And she would faithfully come to our exercise program. I
Yeah.
was so impressed with her. You know, she was able to do squats and lunges and touch her toes.
Yeah.
And she was just very active in the community.
Right.
In the community, but also with her family. So how I came up with the number 107 was I started thinking in my own life, and I thought, you know, I know these people that are 90, 95. I know some that are 100. And at what point do they consider themselves old? And I kind of went back to my career in working in the nursing home.
Yeah.
And for myself, I think what I consider would be old would be if I close my eyes and think of somebody that's old. I would see that person maybe bedridden. A lot of their family has, you know, either passed on or they have further in their life, so they're not at a
Yeah.
point where they can visit real often.
Right.
A lot of the friends are gone. I saw myself as quite lonely, unable to do things.
Right.
Maybe unable to do some things that I enjoyed.
Right. Right.
Just kind of waiting to pass on.
Right.
So I came up with 107 because I've never met anyone that was 107.
Yeah.
And I have in my own personal life had some connections with people that were very vibrant, still past the age of 100.
Right.
So that's how I came up with
Yeah.
that. But you said that your number was 97, and
Right.
you also probably had some similar thoughts.
Yes, I have very similar thoughts. I think I came with 97 because it was reaching close to the triple digit mark. I'm thinking, oh, that's kind of a breaking point. And then I went kind of to the same thing as you. What makes a person, in my eyes, old is when they become more secluded and isolated from both family and community. And most of their friends have passed. So I think for both of us, it comes down to that social connection to community is gone.
Right.
And then you then become very isolated.
Yes.
And so that's how kind of we came up with our numbers. But we also asked that of the board members, and a lot of their ages range younger than ours, which was like from, in the 70s up into, I think a couple got to 90 or 92. So that was a very interesting conversation also with the board. And a lot of theirs came down to most of my friends will be gone and my health will fail.
Yep,
So again,
similar.
it deals with that social isolation from the community. So that was a very interesting conversation with the board.
Yes, it sure was, yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy having those conversations with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on the flip side, what can we do at the center to keep people involved and
Right.
encourage the socialization, and
Right.
what can we do to make sure that they're living at their fullest,
Right.
whatever stage they're in, even if they're starting to run into some health issues.
Right. Let's backtrack to the Aging Cafe just a
Sure.
little bit here. We were talking about the one person's comment that said, We start aging from the time we're born to the time we pass away. And it matters what's in between that. And that's kind of been a passion, I know, for both you and myself. And we kind of term that as legacy. And we really believe that no matter, some people will say, oh, I can't leave a legacy, I don't have enough money. I can't leave a legacy, I can't buy a building in town and put my name on it. I can't leave a legacy because I can't, and the excuses kind of come out of the woodwork. But our thought processes are a little different, which I think most people who know us would say that's not unusual for us. But when we think of legacy, we think of it completely different. So, want to expand on that?
Yeah. So, I don't know at what point in society legacy became associated with the monetary,
Right.
That you had to have big bucks to be able to leave a legacy or imprint on your community.
Right.
I strongly believe that each person in this community leaves their fingerprint. It doesn't matter how big or small, each
Right.
one of us is impacting this community in our own significant way. Each of us are so individual that legacy can be totally different.
Right.
So what we've tried to do with some of the seniors at the center is point out some of the legacy that they're leaving.
Right.
One of the people that we work with that recently passed away within the last year, one of her legacy imprints was, something as simple as her banana bread.
Yes.
But she's known through the community for her banana bread.
And potato salad.
People would leave her bananas in her car so that she would make banana bread. And sometimes she would even make jam, strawberry rhubarb jam.
Yes.
Oh, delicious.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be this great big monetary donation for an add on to a certain building with our name across it.
Right.
We're all leaving impact. We just need to look at what is our passion and what do people know us for.
Right.
It's so individual from one person to the next. We certainly do have some people at the center that are leaving their fingerprint in a bigger way.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. The little ones are just as important as the big ones. So.
Yep. Because it's impacting a life.
Right.
And from any point that you start touching and leaving that fingerprint on anybody's lives. I know that there's a few people that have passed from the center, and I can say, oh, do you remember who the walker was? They would know. Or I would say, who was the person that was always smiling? And they would know.
Right.
So it's those simple little things that truly, truly leave a mark in this world. And then I was at a meeting yesterday, and I was asked the question with the Aging Cafe, now what? And I said, we got to focus on this area of legacy, that aging through that process, you can leave so many legacies, and I think it can change with you as an individual. I think we all have very personal gifts, something that we are all good at. But I also feel that at different stages of life, we tend to touch and leave a legacy with different imprints as we go along.
Right. Oh, absolutely. You can think of your own life in that matter, but I can also think of other people's life in that matter. Even if I think of some of the people that come in quite frequently, I can see the legacy that they're leaving on my life. But that's different than the legacy that they're perhaps leaving with their family.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting conversation to have. What would your answer be if someone came up to you and said, oh, I've just wasted too many years already. There's no way I can leave a legacy now. I haven't been the greatest legacy leaver.
It's never too late to leave a legacy impact or impact on life.
Yep.
It's never too late. Until the moment that you're taking your last breath, it's not too late. You can start today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also interesting to have the conversation, as Heather touched on. We leave a legacy and the imprints in the community, but then we leave that legacy piece with our family. Any more thoughts on that, Heather?
Thinking about that for a second.
Yeah.
You know, my mind is going to a person that became like family to me.
Right.
I had a strong connection with an individual that was in her 90s, who I would consider her family. I mean, I was a pallbearer at her funeral.
Right.
Her impact on my life was like a family impact.
Right.
And it just, you know, when I think of the family impact that she has had on my family, I look at my kids and see her fingerprints on what I'm leaving for them.
Right.
You know, even with family, there's some little things, you know, whether it's we make Christmas cookies together,
Right.
or we're making lefse for the holidays, or we always go to this location for the 4th of July.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's even some of the simple, even other things, like maybe you're always the one that creates the laughter, or maybe you're the one that sits down and will have the deep conversation with them, or maybe you're the one who always has read to them and wanted to know what they're reading. You know, there's so many different pieces to that pie that I would really wish that each person listening out there in the community during this holiday season would take some time. And, you know, there's another question to ask, right?
Right.
If you were to take your last breath today, what do you think your legacy would be? Or you could ask the people around the table, what do you think my legacy would be if today was my last day? It'd be interesting to hear the imprints that have been left.
Yes. And I think that it's so important to capture that legacy. Because if we're not capturing the legacies, then we really lose out on the history.
Yep.
And we've had some conversations on that too. If you don't understand your history, then
Yeah. You have a piece missing going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a real void. And I also think that, I mean, I share stories about my grandma with my grandkids.
right.
I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 generations that are being impacted because of my relationship with my grandma.
Right.
So I think those are the pieces that are huge. It's kind of like storytelling,
It
really,
is.
in a sense.
It is, and it's just knowing that moment to take a little extra time with someone.
Yeah.
You know, there was this guy that started coming down to the center. I think you'd have to fill in the pieces for me, but I think that he came down maybe a little bit more when his wife was around.
Right.
But since I started, he really only came like once a month type of a deal. And for whatever reason, I ended up sitting next to him a few months back.
Yep.
And I just took the moment to be able to visit with him about his past, because I didn't know him, so I wanted to know, you know, what his legacy was really, and I just asked him that. And ever since, there's been a friendship that has evolved with
from
this.
that. Yeah.
But I think it's just taking that extra time and slowing down and really listening, especially this time of year. It seems like life gets so busy.
Right.
You know, take that moment to have that simple conversation with someone.
Yeah.
What is your legacy?
Yeah, and when you say that at this time of the year, it reminds me of the book A Cup of Christmas Tea.
Right.
How they really didn't want to go, they didn't want to have the visit, but when they went, they were happy they went and had the visit, and it doesn't have to be long. But then there's a follow-up book where she has passed, and now they miss going. So it's just a really important thing that take the moment now. Even if it's only 5 minutes, you have 5 minutes.
Right.
I truly believe everybody has 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
And even walking down the street, you have that 30 seconds, that 10 seconds to look someone in the eye,
Right.
smile, and say, hello,
Right.
have a great day. I mean,
Yeah. You never know if that is,
It's
that's
simple.
a legacy impact just right there.
yeah,
Without
that's
even
a legacy.
realizing.
So it doesn't have to be huge. The other fun thing we did, and I know we're going to run out of time here, is we've challenged the board. We at the center, we have the responsibility to leave a legacy in this community. So what is that legacy? And we've been challenging the board. Are you reaching your hand out and saying, come see what we have here? And as new people come in, what are you interested in? Can we get you connected? So it's not only individually, it's not only as a business-wise, it's the community as a whole.
Right. I agree.
So it's just, it's a huge piece. So we really challenge you. And I know some people really like writing. You know, sit down and write some of those letters to that's a lost, that's a whole nother
That's a
show.
whole nother show.
That's truly a lost art, but write a letter to a family member, to a friend. It's a wonderful time of the year to just say, hey, I want you to know that I really appreciate you because of,
This.
it can be 3 lines, it can be 2 lines, it can be, I appreciate you because of, it really impacted me by,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah.
It's really simple, but it's amazing what comes from that. Just letting them know, this is your legacy imprint on my life, and I want to say thank you. So I think we can wrap up with
Yeah.
3 questions,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
At what age are you old and why? If I were to pass tomorrow, what would be my legacy for you? And is there someone that you need to write a letter to and just say to them, I appreciate you because of, this is how it's impacted me, thank you. So with the legacy and our thoughts on that, any final thoughts on that, Heather?
I think you covered it. I think we covered it pretty well. Yeah.
And we'll continue working on this legacy piece. Watch our programming at the center. Watch the information in our newsletter. I know we're going to do a focus on it perhaps for the January newsletter.
Yep.
We just have a real drive to want people to think about that because we think the impact is like throwing a pebble in the water and the ripples will go out for not to only touch many people, but it'll also go out to touch many generations.
Right. Yeah, that's
So-
great.
So with that, we're going to say, hey, we'll catch you next time. Go out, have the conversation around legacy, and leave your legacy. Thank you.
Yep.